Over the last few years, most of my time has been spent playing multiplayer games, rarely, if ever, putting more than a handful of hours into single-player stories. I played a lot of them in primary school, but that was what I did to escape without much access to the internet. Like Fortnite for kids today, League, Destiny, and Overwatch were the backdrop of mine and many other teenagers' hangouts. Friends would be yelling about the game at each other, laughing loud enough to disturb our parents from their sleep at 1 AM in the morning, before hearing a faint angry shout in the background. The inevitable mic mute and silence of solidarity from everyone else in the call, as one of us got a pretty well-deserved ass beating. I started this script as a focused introspective on 2022, but within a few minutes of starting, I realized that this was really the first time in probably close to a decade that I've actually sat down and thought about the impact that games have had on my life. The confines of a year felt so limiting to fit my reflections into because of all the times before and the times after that have shaped my last year in games. Part of me is worried that trying to fit years into minutes means I'll miss a lot of important moments, that without this writing, they'll be left to the scrolls of an old Skype chat. But I remind myself that the people I'm writing this for, my friends, all of them, from whenever in the world, they'll remember those moments for the way they made them feel. Growing up, I got my first glimpse of games through the lens of an old hand-me-down Game Boy from my cousin with a handful of games, all of which I promptly forgot about except for Pokemon Emerald and Leaf Green. Those two became my late-night obsession for the better part of 2 years, simply losing myself in the magic of exploring a new, mysterious world to escape from the difficulties of home life as a kid. And for a while, that was enough. Games existed in my head in the same medium as books and movies. Devices for stories and adventures that immersed and distracted me from everything else. And I think all of that changed with the rise of Minecraft. Minecraft still captured that sense of exploration and intrigue at first, but it also opened up games for me as a medium for socializing. I spent the school week looking forward to going over to a friend's place for the weekend, just to spend a few hours together on a random shitty server. I remember using landlines to talk to each other in game, because that was the most reliable and cheap option we had. After I got into Minecraft, games became an almost entirely social activity for me. I still loved good stories, and I speedran any book I could get my hands on to try fill that hole. But in my eyes, games became an experience to be shared. So firm was my belief in this that the first time I played Plants vs. Zombies, it was on a decaying laptop with one of my best friends as a duo. We played that game like couples watch TV releases together, but in this, we were the overworked directors, choosing the outcome of the story. We shared our disappointment and panic at watching an unexpected football zombie run through our lines, and we shared in our excitement and elation as Zomboss's head fell from the sky. Early into high school, I picked up League of Legends, mostly because my friends already played it, and it was the obvious pick for someone who wanted to connect over a game. I'd already watched my older cousin play for years by that point, and despite never having played myself, I had a little bit of experience with the MOBA genre in the form of an excellent mobile game called Vainglory, and that definitely helped soften the blow of getting my ass handed to me while I learned to play with a mouse and keyboard. I think it was because of that experience, growing up watching people play as much as playing myself, that I gravitated towards playing support in League, but never the kind of support who sat back and occasionally healed the team, because I was far too much of a control freak to let that happen. I found joy not in the limelight, but at the hands of the lighting and soundboard behind the stage. I loved being the reason that someone else succeeded, and I think part of that resonated back and forth with the rest of my life. Learning to play League after all my friends had played for years lit a competitive spark in me that I'd not really known was there and seldom paid attention to before. And I felt this need to catch up and have an impact on every single match I loaded into. It felt like this third circle rose into my Venn diagram of reasons to play games. Under the love for storytelling and connecting with people, I found a desire to be good at what I did. But oftentimes, I didn't really know what being good meant, and I think I still don't. But back then, I was even worse at figuring out how to do that as a team. 2021 represented a change in the way I looked at League. I went from playing every single available competitive Clash event in 2020 to playing none. And part of that was definitely due to messy arguments and burnout, but more so because of how I started to use League as a social tool again, just like we had back in the early years of high school. We became casual ARAM gamers, fucking around, laughing our way into the midnights, and I don't think I've ever enjoyed myself more. There are probably hundreds of hours of us screaming at each other over League, and I've made many a memory with League as either the background or the focus, both good and bad. League has held me for thousands of hours over 4 or so years. Time spent winning and losing, time spent by myself in the demonic cage of solo queue, but ultimately the time I remember the most is the time we spent together. So, thank you to all of you who put up with my 0-14 gameplay. During this period, I started exploring single-player stories again, because despite my best efforts, the end of high school killed my habit of reading, so that need for stories had to be found elsewhere. I went through probably dozens of games, watching friends play, watching full playthroughs when I didn't own the console, and playing plenty myself. Games like Firewatch, Subnautica, Genshin Impact, they all left a mark on me, but none in recent memory really stuck with me like Before Your Eyes. I found Before Your Eyes in mid-2021, and despite its short length, it completely captured me for weeks, and I still think about it from time to time without any direct reminders. Only one other piece of media I've ever consumed has prompted full ugly crying for hours afterwards, and I think that really speaks to how hard it hit me. And I really didn't expect it to. It didn't have a technically perfect story. The graphics were nice and well-styled, but nothing mind-blowing. The control scheme was creative, but a bit clunky at times. But none of these stopped me from loving it any less, because it came to me as the right story at the right time. A game that helped me appreciate the value of single-player stories again, just when I had started to forget. But just because I'd stopped wanting to get good at League, doesn't mean that that fire for getting better at something ever stopped burning. I started playing Destiny 2 back at the end of 2018, but it wasn't until I'd stopped caring so much about League that I really found the time to go nuts on Destiny. When I first picked up the game, I was a lost little boy with hardly any FPS experience at all. No grasp of any of the technical aspects of the game, just happy to explore huge worlds again. In some ways, Destiny represented this perfect balance in the middle of my Venn diagram for playing games, between socializing, storytelling, and competition, even if I didn't know it yet back then. I think I've made more friends throughout my time in Destiny than I have almost every other game combined, because Destiny forces you into collaboration, often against a set challenge, but sometimes other players too. I miss the era of 2019 Destiny, partly because I think the game was a better game back then, but mostly because I miss that sense of venturing out into the wilderness with two of my high school buddies, lost, but enjoying ourselves in the company of each other. There were days after school we'd come home and simply run around the European Dead Zone for hours on end. Not a goal in sight, just taking in Bungie's serene soundtrack, the noises of a world alive and teeming with activity. The screams of panic at a taken night with 3 question marks next to the name, or the trash we talked to each other in the custom lobby while missing every shot. Destiny 2 taught me that the context of your situation in real life comes together with the game itself to create unique experiences in games as much as it does in life. A lesson that might seem obvious to others, but one I struggled to discover. I can never go back and play any of these games for the first time again, or experience that childlike wonder of a world unexplored. And it was this game that made that clear to me. The games continued to evolve, and I still love it, but it's a different kind of love. One that exists from watching the game grow with me, and as fucking cliche as it is, the friends we made along the way. Destiny helped me connect to so many of my friends that I think my life in 2022 would have looked remarkably different without them. Riding 1,000 kilometers to go see online friends in real life is something straight out of every Asian parent's worst nightmare, and yet it was probably one of the best things I've ever chosen to do. Placing a face to a disembodied voice I've been talking to for 4 years is not something one gets to experience very often. Just walking around the show floor of PAX with my high school friends, away from home and away from the rest of my life, was amazing. And I hope you three enjoyed seeing video games brought to life in a crowd of thousands as much as I did. So, thank you to all of you in Melbourne and Sydney I've met over the last year because of Destiny, and see you soon to all my friends elsewhere in the world. Thank you for making those memories with me. Ones of laughter, ones of triumph, ones of frustration. Even if I only met some of you because of one unspeakably cringe moment back in 2020. Beyond the social impact of Destiny, it relit that fire of competition and burning desire for mastery in me. And now that flame burns brighter than ever in games like Overwatch. The elation and pure dopamine release I felt in February 2022, when we beat Val the Disciple Day 1 together, the excitement I got from speedrunning Grandmaster Nightfalls, they completely overshadow the exhaustion of something unfortunate like Kingsfall. I'm writing this at a time when we're just starting to pull the team together for 2023 again, and I have no idea how that'll go, and I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm infinitely grateful that we got to run together in these high-stress, big commitment days, and I'm very thankful you chose to spend that time with me. So, thank you to my clan, and I promise to die as much as possible in the next jumping puzzle.